The Mental Brew Podcast, sponsored by Sentinel Computers, your partner in IT security and support, keeping your business safe.
Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Mental Brew Podcast. My name is Denis and today we have Niall Regan on. Niall is Head of Education and Development with the FAI. So Niall, thanks for coming on.
No, very good to see you again, Dennis, and looking forward to our catch up.
Brilliant. I suppose Niall, starting off, my man, I suppose, why do you do what you do?
Oh, start with the easy ones. Yeah, look, I suppose like anyone growing up, you fall in love with a sport. My sport was football. Everything I wanted to do as a child growing up was with a football. I remember Christmas morning running down the stairs and you get that new football and the smell of that new football and you're really afraid to use the football outside and it gets the first mark and then 3 months later there's leather falling off it and I just love football really and had the aspiration and the dream to try and want to be a player. Couldn't fulfill that really. Did my best what I could to try and play at the highest level I could and enjoy playing football at an amateur level, but just didn't really have that ability to make that next step into the professional game. And along that journey, I had some really good people that just gave me good guidance and advice. Liam Murphy probably had the difficult conversation in what was Stefan Nefa, the Tramore Road campus in Cork, where he had the soccer academy and he was Cork City manager at the time. And I remember sitting with him and just saying, I'd love to be a football player. And he was just like, Niall, it's just not going to be there for you. It's one of those things. And we had a really honest, difficult conversation, but he really guided me through that conversation and finished with like, there's so many other opportunities and pathways in football. And he really sort of was the first one to get me on the coaching route and went into coaching and absolutely loved coaching and got to work with the likes of Nick Conroy, Colin O'Brien, Stuart Ashton, Frank Keller, Richie Holland, Ivan Bevan, great people in Cork that are just real good football people and really got into the coaching bug and did that for a long period of time, did that for 10 or 15 years. And then the opportunity came to sort of drift into the coach education. And if I'm honest, that was the first time I really went, oh, I like this. I
Yeah,
really, really sort of found my place.
yeah,
Loved coaching, loved being around players, absolutely loved the dressing room, loved the banter, loved being in the big games, winning games, losing games, all of those things. Bit of a roller coaster and all of that. But I really sort of started to realize that I enjoy getting my wins through others. I enjoy
yeah,
seeing people that I work with move on and just working in the education space and developing people across the pro license, UEFA licenses, even staff development internally, seeing people who may have left school at a young age and then re-entered education at a later age and being able to support them and guide them through a master's or guide them through a UEFA qualification or an informal development experience and just seeing them grow. I think
yeah.
that's really why I do what I do. I just enjoy seeing people be successful and I genuinely get my wins from seeing others just maximizing their potential.
And would you have a kind of a typical week or a typical month, or does it vary? Because I follow you on socials, obviously, and I think I saw a picture with yourself in Cafu there recently enough. Like that's not like an ordinary Monday, like.
That's definitely not like an ordinary Monday. No, look, it does vary. I would be in the office predominantly in a normal working week, 3 or 4 days a week. But you just don't get too many of those normal working
Yeah,
weeks. It's one of those things that with events that we have, like I was in Brazil and met Cafu as part of the FIFA Technical Leadership Diploma. It's a 2-year program that FIFA have created. So we're doing that over 25 and 26. I'm just back from Italy, so I spent the week in Coverciano, so the first ever football training center, which was amazing. And there's two more blocks of that where we go to Korea in May of next year, and then it finishes
class.
in Switzerland. So lots of travel. It's very, very diverse. No matter how much we plan ahead of time, there's just lots of opportunities that come up, different conferences and events. I was in Kuala Lumpur there recently presenting at the Asian Football Confederation conference. So it's great to get these opportunities through football, great to travel, and very lucky that we in the FAI have that opportunity through football to see the world. And it's very exciting to be in a job that can be very flexible, very diverse, and doesn't really ever get stale because you're dealing with different people, different things, different
Yeah,
environments all the time.
that's unreal. And I suppose in terms of the coach education, so obviously you lay out, programs and coaches go to it. Do you ever get to go back on the grass even to watch the coaches coach? Is it, so what way does it work for you in terms of, getting chalk in the boots these days?
Yeah, look, it can be a little bit difficult at times, but thankfully I have two young boys, Jack and Josh, 9 and 5 at the moment in time. And when I can, I always step in and help out and volunteer in the local club here in Cork, and it's great to be able to do that. And there's nothing beats coaching the youngest ones. Like I was with Joshua's team there recently, and we were doing stuck in the mud, and we were doing races and chases, and it was just such fun and such
Yeah,
energy, and it just makes you realize why you love the game. But I do also try and get on the grass every couple of weeks, just from a technical side of it, in terms of actually putting in a tactical training session. It's hard at times, it really is, because we just don't have time. But it's so important to keep connected to the grass, keep connected to the players, because I think back, it's probably 10 years since I was last Cork City women's manager, and that was my last sort of full-time role as a coach. So when you're leading coaches on a day-to-day basis and supporting them, it's so important to get on the grass so that you
yeah.
can connect reality and real life situations to what we're doing. But I do miss it in that sense, because that's obviously the best part, whether it was playing or coaching. It's always great to get on the grass, but our job does allow for it, so we do get opportunities to do that.
It's class. And do you know the way now, I'm thinking with Gaelic football in mind, right? If you go back to, we say when Jim Gavin was with Donegal, it was a style of play. So then Donegal were successful. That style of play filtered down into club teams throughout the country, and everyone was doing the big sweeper, the blanket defence. Then Jim Gavin came in with Dublin, and it was more expansive. And again, the way people were coaching changed. How do you, I suppose, coach the coaches in terms of, we would say, styles of play when it's kind of ever evolving, or I suppose what way do you try and plan it that way? Because obviously at the moment you're looking at soccer, it's the Pep Guardiola model, whereas you go back to the Premiership. I even saw a clip on it in early 2000s. It's taking a man on, it's whipping balls in. It's kind of different to what we see today.
Yeah, look, it evolves every week, every tournament. Like, even you look at our under 17s preparing for the World Cup in November, we'll take great learnings from that. We'll have staff that will be specifically there analysing the tournament. UEFA and FIFA do amazing things now, where every week, every time there's a game, there's free analysis online readily available, so coaches can literally look at it and learn from it themselves. FIFA have actually just recently opened up their FIFA training centre as an open access resource, which is literally outstanding, because they do free webinars. They actually released a few webinars that are coming later in October with the likes of Roberto or he was with the Belgium team, was with Everton,
Oh,
Roberto
Martinez.
Martinez, and a number of other coaches of that caliber and level. I think Klinsmann is another one that's doing one of those 1 hour webinars. So there's so much out there now. And I think in the modern game, it's so analytical now. And because of that, the game has probably become a little bit more tactical.
Mm,
And you're not, like, when we were growing up and watching players play, it was very much like a large scale basketball game from a football context. It was end to end.
yeah.
It was tackles, it was turnovers, it was transitions, it was lots of attacking play. It was very direct at times. While now you're probably seeing it over the generations, the most influential player now, or the person that gets the most touches of the ball, is probably playing in the defensive unit of the team, whether it be the goalkeeper or one of the defenders, fullback or centre half. So it's completely different in terms of that build up. But I do see it starting to turn again. You see it with ourselves. Evan is a great number 9. He's a really what you would
Mm,
classify as a traditional number 9. That role is definitely coming back. I think Haaland is going to inspire a generation of number 9s because of the way he plays the
yeah.
game. And I know Roy Keane jokingly said at one point in time about his technical ability that it wasn't as great as it should be in terms of him being quality wise at a lower end. But really, that's what a traditional line was. There were somebody that just put pressure up front. They'd get the defender thinking about, I need to drop 10 yards here, because he's got the strength, he's got the pace, he's got the ability, and he's a finisher. And it's about actually understanding that that's what a traditional line was, and it could come back in that sense, and we're definitely seeing it. But I think it's a matter of just all the time watching football as much as you can. And as much as we watch football on TV, it's about watching actually football out on the grass. Go out and watch the
Mm,
local game. Go out and see, the League of Ireland games, and seeing the way in which the game has been played. And I think it's just having the ability to reflect on it. And there's then just so much analysis available at the moment of time that coaches are probably inundated with opportunities to see what the future looks like. And probably one thing we always ask all of our coaches is to think about that player of the future, is to think about that talented player that's going to be there in 10 years' time. How are you going to communicate with them? How are you going to get the best out of them? Because they're so different. You know, when we
Yeah.
think about ourselves growing up, how coaches probably interacted with us isn't the way in which coaches would interact with younger players or players in a first team environment now, and that's going to only evolve further with mobile phones, social media, and the way in which people interact with the world. So it's all about just being open minded and constantly thinking about the future and just analysing the game as much as you can.
That's brilliant. And like in terms of, I suppose, your own job and dealing with people, how important is that? And like, have you seen, without naming names, obviously, but have you seen, I would say, an unreal coach that you kind of went when you first met him and saw him in action or her in action? You're kind of going, geez, they have it, whatever it is. But then, for whatever happened, whatever happens, is their career progressed, that they were kind of missing a certain skill, whether it be the social skills or it be the personal skills, the kind of a level of emotional intelligence, maybe, where they kind of didn't reach their potential. Like, have you seen that in coaches in your kind of career to date?
Yeah, you definitely do see it because it's really hard now where a lot of the time when you're working, especially if you're working in an elite environment, it's probably more about developing your soft skills. It's about
Mm.
how you deal with stakeholders. It's about how you manage your multidisciplinary team. Like a traditional manager 30 years ago, I remember photographs of Arsene Wenger when he first started out. He was literally on the bench on his own. He did everything, like, and he would speak to that in terms of actually socializing the fact that now it's about managing so many staff. Like, and when you see all of the team photographs at the start of a year, there's nearly more staff than there is players now. So now
Yeah,
all of a sudden, the manager has to manage that multidisciplinary team, and all of a sudden that takes you away from your comfort zone of being on the grass or being a really good coach, coaching the game of football. Because, like at the top end of the game, if you're playing Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, you're really not training. You're managing players' loads. You're
yeah,
probably just being as effective as you can with walkthroughs or very light sessions. So there's no actual traditional heavy training sessions. And even if you're going Saturday to Saturday now because of the volume of games and the length of the seasons, you're still probably only doing one or two of those real traditional 90-minute training
yeah,
sessions where we would have seen a coach be in that coaching role. So it's very much about in the modern game, developing those soft skills. How do you communicate? How do you lead? How do you get a group of players, especially in the adult game, to follow you in terms of actually taking the messages on board, being able to put them into practice? And that is a challenge because, you know, especially if you're a high-end player, I always describe it where if a top professional player comes into the coaching world, it's very difficult for them to chunk that learning because they
mm,
do it unconsciously. They're so talented that they're able to actually do actions in the game without thinking. So all of a sudden now you're asking them to actually chunk that down. So they have to actually think about, well, how do I make that run or how do I receive that ball and make that pass? And if you do it unconsciously, it can be very difficult to actually break that down.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden you have to have the ability to communicate that to somebody else. And then if they don't understand it, it can be very conflicting for you because it could be so simple to you in your mind. It could be just you just do X, Y, Z, and for somebody else, that could be the complete opposite of
yeah,
what they would understand it to be. So having that communication skills and having the ability to sort of get information across to somebody else is very difficult in modern society because we're all complex, people are complex, and I think when you look at today's dressing rooms, they're so diverse from an ethnic background perspective, from a cultural perspective, from a an educational perspective, from a diversity perspective. So there's so many challenges that you're
mm,
dealing with. And because of that, there are a lot of people maybe find that difficult and probably don't reach their potential. But then there are others definitely that do that take the right steps, go into the right educational programs. And it's not just formal education. Like it's one of the most important things I always say is that the UEFA qualifications and coach education is brilliant in terms of disturbing your thinking, bringing you into an environment, giving you an opportunity to just put a lens on yourself and your football and thinking and talking about football. But it's
yeah,
all the informal development. It's all the stuff outside of that. It's going away and actually doing qualifications, whether it be academically, whether it be with programs like mentorship and coaching. And even having a mentor, like for the top coaches in today's society, one of the best pieces of advice I would give is go and get a professional mentor, because you need somebody to be that sounding board. You need somebody that you can have a conversation with that you can't in your own environment, in your own club setting. And I think that professional support is hugely important in modern football.
Yeah. And in terms, I remember growing up and the famous quote from Eamon Dunphy, Dolphin Keane, street footballers. How how do we, I suppose, get back to that? Is that something that's still around? Is that more of a societal thing rather than a coach education thing where they could have been on the streets from noon until night kicking ball? Obviously, these days, parents aren't going to leave their kids out in the streets for whatever reason. Um, how do we get back to that, has time kind of moved on from those kind of players?
Yeah, no, I think definitely time has moved on, and I think just having a connection with the ball is key. It's something that we're actually working on a concept around me and my ball, and they would be the name of our grassroots courses in terms of me and my being for 5 to 7 year olds, me and my skills, me and my teammates, and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
We're also working out a broader concept around, well, actually, how can we guarantee a child has access to a football in every setting, whether it be at home, whether it be in school, whether it be in a club setting? And we're looking at in the next couple of weeks doing an initiative around engaging further with the schools around the equipment, and that'll be a brilliant impact around, well, actually, how do you use the medium of football in schools? And here are some footballs to do it. And
yeah,
just to start thinking that it all doesn't have to happen in the club setting, because the clubs do amazing work, but as the game has grown and the volume of teams that they have in clubs, like some clubs now will struggle to get 1 or 2 nights training a week because of just the volume of teams that they have.
yeah,
So it's about actually saying, well, how do we get kids using our football, playing our sport, doing challenges at home? And probably the best way is going to be to modernize what we do. And in January, we will be launching a new learning platform that'll be open access to everybody in the game, from parents, volunteers, coaches, teachers, players. And one of the things we want to do is to sort of encourage the gamification of football and actually
yeah,
put in different tricks and challenges that kids can do at home with a balloon, or kids can do at home with a softball or with a football, and just get them getting an understanding of, well, what little challenges can you do at home if you're out in your backyard and you're playing against the wall? What are the top players able to do? What skills and tricks do you need to be able to do? And then probably just encouraging it where we can in the club environment. Like I'm just back from Italy as part of the FIFA Technical Leadership Diploma, and we spent a day in Fiorentina, like out of this world. Now, the investment in the club was phenomenal because they spent 120 million building their training base, which is
oh,
literally a football village.
yeah.
But it's exactly that within the village of the football, or within the training base, they have hubs created where it's street football. So
Okay,
part
cool.
of their formal training, they've actually created the whole idea and concept of a football space. So it's literally one of those unorthodox spaces that we
Class.
would find ourselves. I remember growing up, in our school setting, we used to have an old basketball court, and you'd have the two poles, and you put a jumper down beside it, and that was the goal. That type of context. And it's really about just trying to even encourage that in a school setting, where the best thing about our sport is you can do that. You can literally just put jumpers on the ground and play it
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah,
And it's about getting teachers, getting kids, getting people just comfortable with where we can, maximizing how often they play the game, because it does help. The more comfortable you get with a football, the better you get in terms of your ability and your touch, your ability to read the way the ball bounces. So the more contact you get, the better it is. But again, it is difficult in today's society and the challenges that we face, where it's probably not got the safety that we would have grown up with, where you could go out on the street until the middle of the night. So we probably have to disturb our thinking, and
yeah.
how do we achieve that through doing it at home or in school or in other settings, you know?
That's class. And like even with, I suppose the number of kids playing soccer, what's the kind of, if there was a percentage of the number of kids playing soccer in the country, like where the soccer rank? Is it number one? Is it number two? Is it number three? What's
Yeah.
the
Yeah, well, from our perspective, in terms of individual sporting numbers, it's definitely the most participated sport in the country in terms of the volume of individuals. Obviously, if you cluster Gaelic sports and put them all together, there's probably a differentiation. But if you compared maybe hurling, football, and ourselves, I definitely would see us as the sport that would be right up there. And it's really about as well encouraging that we want people playing multiple sports. Like I look at it everywhere I go in the world. There's nearly an element of envy towards what we have as a sporting nation because sometimes we can look at it as a challenge that lots of kids play multiple sports. But again, if you go to the top academies in world football, they're bringing kids into the environment and they could be in the environment 4 or 5 days a week, but each of the days they could be doing a different sport.
Okay.
Like Iceland are brilliant for that in terms of actually the municipalities. All of the sports are centralized in one location. So a kid is coming to the same location and they're playing basketball or athletics or swimming or team sports.
Yeah.
And it's about actually realizing like we're very blessed that our young people want to play so many sports. I think the biggest thing we have to do as NGBs is just collaborate as much as we can to protect the young people so that you don't have a situation where as they get a little bit older into their teenage years that they're not overusing
Yeah.
themselves in terms of you don't want a scenario where sports aren't connecting or communicating and a kid could be doing an intensive training session in one sport and then an hour later doing the exact same thing in a different sport. So it's just about having good, clear communication as you can. And we really are doing that through Sport Ireland with the NGBs across we like working out a sports campus. It gives us the opportunity to connect. I only recently myself spent a bit of time with the Leinster GAA in terms of their coach developers sharing what we do in an education and development sense. So there
Yeah.
are collaborations there, and it's definitely getting better with how we work together. But I do feel that we are very lucky and that sometimes we can see it as a negative, but it's actually quite a positive,
Yeah.
especially from the outside in.
Do you know, like obviously, people will always kind of look back. I think it's just human nature. You look back to your time in school, and you look at, maybe rose tinted glasses. Obviously there was a time there we had, a massive amount of internationals playing with the top clubs in England. It seems to be less these days, but I suppose what's that down to? Is that down to stuff out of, we'll say, the players' control? Have clubs just gone across the water and even into further afield in terms of countries they pick from? That makes it harder for Irish players to break through. I suppose what would your opinion on that would be?
Yeah, I think it's always important to be really informed, and I think Will Clark has done an amazing job in the League of Ireland, and it was great to see the positive news around the investment into the academy structure based on that objective evidence that, like, when you think about our really high potential players that years ago may have went to England at 15 and 16, and I think Brian Kerr spoke brilliantly about the fact that they were drifting into first teams. They weren't just going into the academy settings.
Yeah.
We were nearly on par in terms of a development stage because we had great football infrastructure that was similar to other countries. The difference now is that 20 years on, if you go across the, as I say there, Fiorentina in Italy, you've an owner investing 120 million in the training
Yeah.
base. Like if you look at all of the English clubs across all of the tiers, even if you go into Scotland, and we've had a great collaboration with Celtic and visiting and bringing our pro license coaches over and observing their environments and like the amazing infrastructure that they have. And really, that's a big part of it is that we really just need to get further investment to allow us get those facilities to create the environments. Like I see what we achieve on a regular basis with amazing volunteers across grassroots and then into the League of Ireland, and they've just done amazing things because we're still producing highly talented players. But
Yeah.
when you look at it, if you look at the best academy facility, if you look at the best infrastructure that we have probably in Shamrock Rovers and the success they've had over the last number of years, all you need to do is compare and contrast that investment because they're selling players now in the millions, while
Yeah.
20 years ago, look at the likes of Seamus Coleman. I think Everton have probably got the greatest
Oh,
investment
stop.
ever, where it was around 50,000 euros or something. And you think about what Seamus Coleman, knowing now what he's achieved, what he would be worth if he was going across
Yeah.
as a younger player. So I think when you do it right and you have the right infrastructure and you have the professionalization of the academy structure and you have the players getting equality in terms of access to sports psychologists, access to sports nutritionists, access to physical strength and conditioning, performance support, ensuring that you're getting the maximum amount of contact time, equality in terms of all of those things. I have no doubt in my mind we will be back to where we were in the past in terms of competing at major tournaments and continuously producing larger volumes of high potential talented players once we have that parity in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the professionalisation. And that will come. It really will. I think the government have shown that now in terms of the support. And I think Will Clark and Pat Duffy and the League of Ireland team have done a brilliant job in objectifying the stats and sort of bringing in an external company like Double Pass to audit and say, look, this is the landscape. This is where you are from an investment point of view, facilities point of view, from a professionalisation. And it's really going to be beneficial that in the near future, we're going to really start to see that. But I also do believe that looking at the teams now, both men's and women's, we still are producing really, really top talented players, and it's only going to continue. And I think if you look at the player development plan came out in 2015, we're 10 years on. It's a good time to judge where we are 10 years on from the player development plan. The football pathways plan came out in 2024. We're a year into that. Look at where we could be in 10 years' time if we can turn the map green and get more kids playing football, have a real lens focus on player development, coach development, club development, and really just create modern competitions where kids can explore different environments from 11-a-side football to smaller-sided football. And just, I genuinely feel that if we can move forward from a facility and infrastructure point of view, have more investment in headcount, full-time staff that are there to develop the people and the players, I think we'll be in a great place in a few years' time.
This episode is brought to you by Sentinel Computers, trusted IT support for Irish businesses for over 20 years. From cybersecurity to cloud solutions, Sentinel Computers keeps your systems secure, compliant, and performing at their best. Visit sentinelcomputers.net to protect what matters most.
Yeah, because even when I was involved with the City Women's, myself and one of the lads were kind of chatting away. Like, there is savage potential in the League of Ireland. Obviously, it takes investment in terms of, you look at Treaty, outside investment coming in, other clubs the same, but like, there's obviously then a risk with that because there is a huge cost for an owner to come in to run a ladies team, which will probably, I think the winners of the league, do they get like 20 grand or whatever? I think it only covers mightn't even cover all the buses for the year to away games. Obviously there's more, we'll say, money to be made from the men's game if they win the league, and obviously transfers and whatnot. But there's definitely a huge potential in terms of the league. Does it take investment from outside people? You're talking investment groups, multimillionaires, whatever it may be, or do you think it starts off with maybe developing hubs where in Munster you might have a state-of-the-art facility where a lot of players can go, the same, Leinster, etc., etc., etc.?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a collaboration across multiple things. I don't think it's going to be one quick fix where one shoe fits all or one size of a shoe fits everyone in terms of taking that approach. I think what we're going to have to do is look at each area, each club, each region, and start from your foundations in terms of, well, how do we support grassroots? How do we develop parents as volunteers? How do we develop those volunteers into coaches? How do we make sure that all of the things that we want from a best practice point of view is being delivered across the grassroots game? I think the e-learning approach and modernising how we actually interact with parent volunteer coaches will allow us develop better players across the grassroots game. It'll allow those players explore what it is to be having the aspiration of maximising their potential, whether it be being a top amateur player, whether it be just participating in the game for as long as they can, whether it be trying to become a professional, to give those different avenues and supports. And I think only in the summer, Shane Robinson, our technical director, launched the pilot of the NPP, the National Players Pathway Programme, and it was just brilliant to see players in and around HQ up there for a residential block during the summer months. And it was not just brilliant for the players. I genuinely mean this. I remember walking around the corridor of the office and there's young players in the building, and that brings energy to us, and we're able to have a conversation and you're chatting to a young player and you're saying, what club are you with and what's your aspiration and who do you follow, and all of a sudden after 2-3 weeks the same player is passing your office and they're getting comfortable and they're popping in and they're opening the door saying, I scored a brilliant goal today, Niall, you should see it, I'll show you the video, and you have the video because your video, and all of a sudden there's just an energy and an enthusiasm to what we're doing. And I think that's exactly where we need to do. I think if we can create this environment where there's full-time people in the clubs, where there's more roles, where we build the football industry locally through the clubs, where we give educational opportunities through football, which is a big part of the education and development strategy. Like, how do we actually get full-time education programs into the clubs so that it's not just the League of Ireland clubs, but geographically the top grassroots clubs where we may not have a League of Ireland, so that we can turn the map green. If we offer something to a young player in one part of the country, we offer it to them in every part of the
Yeah.
country. And that's really what we want to try and achieve. And I think the first step in that is the government obviously identifying their financial support as step one, and then building from there and supporting the clubs from an educational point of view, player development, coach development, club development, and just all of us working together. And if we do that, we'll end up where we want to be in the near future.
Yeah, because I can remember being out in Cork in a pub in town for the Euros when Ireland beat Italy, and it was mad. I've never experienced anything like it. And I remember my godfather, he was in Boston for years, but he remembered back to Italian 90, I think it was. Same thing, massive result on the street. I think he actually was saying he got arrested that night. Um, but like it was mad. I think he tip off a guard's hat or something and whatever. But like he just said everyone was on the street. There was some buzz. It was the same that night in Cork. Because there is great support for the national team. Because when the public get behind them, it's kind of a special feeling, isn't it?
Look, even right now, the team has been amazing. I think in the most recent home game, I think we were top of the list in terms of attendances, and that just shows you. And I think globally, everywhere we go, and I'm lucky, I travel the world with football, and everywhere I go, I have not only been welcomed, but I've always met somebody that will talk about our Irish fans. They will always,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
first thing they will say, "Oh, I remember when we played in this game or that game," or they all have a connection to Irish football and to Ireland because of football. And I think that when we're doing well and we're competing and we're qualifying for tournaments, the country stands still. Like I remember exactly all of those moments in terms of growing up and seeing, like I get to have conversations with Packy Bonner. I remember seeing Packy make that save, and you're just thinking
Yeah.
to yourself, like, I walk into a building now and I can have a conversation with that man who was an absolute god in my eyes in terms of where we achieve and what it is. And it's mad at times, but it's like there's no reason why the next generation of Irish players won't have that, and the next generation of Irish fans will also have those amazing memories. And I think there's never going to be a greater moment than the fact that we're hosting games in 28, and with the way it's structured, and the fact that we're hosts, hopefully being there and being in that environment in terms of actually having 5 or 6 games in Dublin, like that's
Yeah.
going to be
Makes me rocking.
Oh, that's going to be out of this world. The country is going to be buzzing. And I just think everyone that's part of Irish football will want to be part of that. And
Yeah.
there'll never be a greater moment to bring the game together. And like, just think where we are now, where we could be in 3 years' time from a player development perspective, from a government funding perspective, from where we are in terms of the teams, both the men's and the women's, the youth teams. I just think it's a really, really exciting time. We're going through transformational projects internally in terms of modernizing how we do and what we do. So I really do believe that in the near future we're going to be in a very exciting place. And it's just we all wake up thinking about those moments and memories, and we all remember distinctly where you were when those big goals are scored and where we have success. And that's exactly what we're all working towards.
I'm going to put you on the spot now with two questions. Now, for anyone that listens to this, I never prepare questions, right? The first one, I want you to name your all-time Irish starting 11.
Oh, that's a difficult one. Well, Packy's number one anyway,
Yeah.
So I think for the role that Packy played, and those moments, that moment, I think just hearing the commentary of him making a
Yeah,
save,
unreal. I can remember watching YouTube clips of that as well.
you just anytime it pops up on your social channels, you'll always still watch it again.
Yeah,
I think Dennis Irwin has to be there.
100%.
I like Denis, like what a talent. I don't think there's ever been a more humble or
Oh,
person who's,
brilliant.
I wouldn't say underrated because I think everybody rates him, but I think when you look back in his career and what he achieved, like it's just out of this world.
Yeah.
John O'Shea, John has to be there.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
class. Yeah.
John has to be there. I put Kenny Cunningham beside John. I
Okay.
think a nice balance between the two there in terms of making sure that we don't concede as much as possible. Um, Probably play Dennis on the right, so I'll put Ian Hart on the left.
Yeah, solid. Yeah,
I,
good left
I
back.
think I think Ian would bring a bit of energy, a bit of technicality, a bit of quality in there. Roy's obviously captaining the team, centre of the
Yeah.
park, running the show.
Yeah.
Probably put Andy Reid beside him. I think
Yeah,
Andy would bring that bit of flair and push forward into that role in between the lines. Wide left, Duffer. Have to have Duffer out wide left.
100%. 100%.
Um, Wide right. Oh, that's a hard one now. Who would I put wide right? Oh, that's a difficult one. Could probably push Seamus Coleman up there, sort of
Yeah,
as
yeah,
a,
yeah,
you know what I mean? You could sort of say you could leaning into that sort of wing back role in terms of having flexibility across it.
yeah,
Uh, Robbie Keane's obviously up top,
100%.
leading the way. Um, and then I think, ooh, gotta go with Quinner, don't you? For me, I'm showing my age now in the generation. There's probably young
Yeah,
people going to listen. Who are we talking about in a lot of those players? But I gotta go with Quinner. I think he was just brilliant. The impact he made, and I always remember that header. When he just headed it down and Robbie got into the box and then he hit it on the half volley, and it's
yeah,
great memories. What about yourself,
absolutely.
then? I'm gonna flip it back to you now. That was a difficult question. What about you?
I go, I go Packy Bonner as well. I would go Steve Finnan right back. Um, I would go Paul McGrath centre back.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and do you know what? I would have said Richard Dunn, but I'd have to go John O'Shea. I'm a United fan. I think John was brilliant. He could play across anywhere across the back line. And then obviously Dennis would be left back. Left mid, Duffer. Centre again would be Keane. Next to Keane, no, that one had me stumped. But I think Andy Reid's actually a good shout. I think that's a good shout. On the right, I would go. Do you know what? I'd nearly go McGeady or Coleman. I like Coleman because like Coleman has been brilliant. But I remember the Steve Finnan, especially when he was at Fulham and Liverpool. I thought he was fantastic. I thought he was brilliant, especially bombing forward. And then up front would be Quinn and Keane as well. So there's kind of more or less the similar one or two changes, but um, when you think to Niall Quinn, like what a player, especially himself and Robbie Keane together, I thought were brilliant.
yeah.
And then Damien Duff. Like I'm a United fan. I was gutted United never signed Damien Duff. I think he would have been like he was brilliant wherever he went. But for United, I think he would have been absolutely phenomenal. Um, and my other question then will put you on the spot. What is your favorite Irish jersey?
Oh, my favorite Irish
Yeah.
jersey. I'd have to probably go back to our Opal days,
Yeah, okay, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
and I'm caught between the white. The white Opal it was special. Do you remember the white?
Yeah, it would be you'd see them now, the remakes online, a lot of those ones. And that's the one you're talking about. I think I know the one you're on
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That was the way one. It's probably but I would go back to that generation. I think those jerseys were just
they were
there was just something special about them. There was just something.
yeah, because I don't know what I was looking at, but I looked at Umbro and looked at the jerseys they had back in the day. Like the Chelsea ones were great. Even the English ones were great. Our ones were class. I loved the Adidas one as well with the World Cup. I loved that one with the
Oh,
tricolour and the collar. That was phenomenal.
you're bringing me back in time now. It's like
um,
it's bringing me back. It's bringing me back to very fond memories. But even like as I named the team, and I can't believe I didn't have Paul McGrath. So that's definitely one I'd have to consider because Paul was obviously one of our greatest players. But when I look at the team I've named and I see the success of the guys, and I remember sitting with Rue Doctor in 2015, and he asked me the question about like where would you love to see us in 10, 15 years time, and I genuinely said to him I was like I'd love to see some of our top people working at the highest level of the game, working across the top leagues in the world, being successful, and having a League of Ireland team regularly competing in Europe. That's what I said.
yeah,
I felt success with, and when you look at what Stephen Bradley has done, and even Stephen Kenny having 1,000 games, like 1,000 games is out of this world in Irish football, and even Mick McCarthy received an award recently for the 1,000 games achievement there. But when you look at John O'Shea, did our pro license, Andy Reid done our pro license, Robbie Keane doing amazing stuff, challenging environment in Israel,
Yeah,
won a league, now in Hungary, won a league, doing well in Europe. Obviously, Damien was so successful with Shells and will definitely resurface in the near future. And you think of like Paddy McCarthy, Noel Hunt, Conor Horan, all these guys that are now starting to
yeah,
really pop up as managers. So it's really exciting to see that in the next 5, 10 years, it'll be really interesting because I've no doubt Seamus will at some point, like he's come through his badges with us at B&A. He'll definitely manage Everton because I think he's just a legend in the club. So there's definitely a few exciting people that could be really leading out. Obviously, Keith's doing it at the moment in time with Brentford.
yeah.
So it's a
Doing really
really
well.
exciting time for Irish managers at that level. And there's a list now of 15, 20 people that are working across youth development and now first team football that in the near future we could have 4 or 5 managers really working at the highest levels. And then you look at home, the likes of I mentioned Stephen, but you look at the likes of John Russell, who's done
Mm.
amazing stuff. So you go, Alan Reynolds had been an assistant for long enough and now is doing brilliant stuff in Bowes. It's really exciting to look at it and take a step back, and that's why these things are nice. These conversations are nice because it gives you a little bit of a chance to step back and go, actually, do you know, there's really, really good stuff going on here, and there's a lot of people that are going to have a really bright future in the game.
Brilliant. We've come to the end there now. I just have 5 quick fire questions for you, and then we're done and dusted. Because I must say, the time is after flying. I just looked at the time there. It's when you're in a conversation and it flies, it's a good sign. Niall, what are you most proud of in your life?
What am I most proud of? A personal sense, obviously, married to my wife Stacey, 2 boys, Jack and Josh. Most proud of obviously that day that I got to walk down the aisle 10 years ago now, actually, ironically. But most proud of my 2 boys. There's nothing more special than you wake up in the morning and you see them.
Yeah,
From a football sense, most proud of. I genuinely mean it. It was just nice to reflect on the people that are doing well, and I really do get my success in the game through others, and it's just great to see so many people that you've worked with doing well.
yeah.
No specific individual. It's just great to see so many people do well. So I'm proud of that.
Great. In your opinion, the greatest ever Irish player.
Has to be Roy Keane. I think from a
Yeah,
leadership perspective, I think from a talent perspective, from an ability perspective, from an influence perspective, still to this day, the influence that he has, I just think he was an amazing player, an unbelievable athlete, recovered from injuries, which a lot of players didn't do at that time as well,
yeah.
and still kept that level. So I'd go with Roy.
Who's been the biggest influence in your career?
Biggest influence on my career. Uh, Mick Conroy has been unbelievable. Mick is a good friend, a mentor of mine. Mick played with Celtic and ran the educational training board football course, the old FOSS course here in Cork, and he's definitely somebody I'd lean heavily on. Stuart Ashton is another somebody I work closely with and learned from a coaching perspective. Rube Doctor, Rube brought me in. He was obviously the high performance director. And then I'd probably say John Peacock from a more global football perspective. And then lastly, Frank Ludolf in UEFA has been a huge mentor, support, somebody that's really tested and challenged me, checked me every now and again as well to make sure that I'm constantly trying to improve and
Hmm.
make myself better. And so I'm very lucky to have a couple of people that I can reel off like that are a really good support network.
And for, I suppose, someone looking to break down that door, and that door could be anything in general. It could be a coach looking to get the job. It could be maybe the kid who's looking to make his local team, to make an international team. What advice would you give someone?
I think the best piece of advice I would give anyone that wants to achieve something is that the only person that will stop them will be themselves, and that no matter what barriers are there, they can be broken down. The supports are there. There are certainly things that will take talent, but in the end of the day, I think hard work will beat talent 10 times over. So if you're willing to work hard and you're willing to do the simple things that are important to people, having empathy, being punctual, being willing to go the extra step, I think you can really achieve anything. I don't think anything is impossible. It's only going to be yourself that'll stop you achieving it.
We mentioned your job and the traveling around and people you get to meet. Who is the one person you've met that brought you back? to the kid who's a massive soccer fan, you're like, oh wow, I get to have a conversation with this person, or I get to have a picture with this person? Who would you say that would be, or was, should I say?
I genuinely think it's a fresh one because in March we were in Brazil and Cafu came in, and people probably don't realize it from our perspective how much of a global influence Cafu was like, and he won 2 World Cups, played in 3 World Cup finals, and it was just sitting down and how humble he was, how kind he was with his time, how open he was with his questions, just opening up his journey and just thinking that like us growing up in Ireland or young people growing up in Ireland might think we have a difficult time. I can tell you one thing: when you're growing up in the areas and spaces where they grew up in Brazil, and just understanding how successful you can be if you're willing to work hard, and it was really down to that simplicity. It wasn't about a lucky break, or it wasn't about somebody giving the door opening opportunity. It was working hard and being willing
Mm.
to constantly make the right decisions, make sacrifices. And I remember just sitting in the room, and just he came over and presented us all with a jersey, a Brazil jersey, which he signed for us. And I just
Wow.
remember looking at that jersey a couple of times since that and just thinking like, can't believe I had the opportunity to sit with a legend of the game
Yeah.
and have that photograph moment with him. And he definitely brought me back to um, just that child of just loving football and watching World Cups and seeing that yellow jersey and seeing that the teams that he played in and the players that he played with. It was just an amazing moment.
And now we're done and dusted there, right? But what I want you to do, if for any parent listening to this, and they're looking to send their daughter or son to play a sport, I'd love you to give a little bit of a pitch of why they should play soccer.
I think it's important that look, I'll give a wider pitch, just get them playing sport. Like I see it with my own young boys. It's so important. Sport is so important in today's society because kids are obsessed with screens and it's a fast-paced society that we live in. And I know it can be challenging and difficult because everybody has to balance work and home. And it's a difficult time in terms of all of the stressors that are out there in the world. But I genuinely mean it, whether it be going for a walk, whether it be going and doing a structured activity in a sport, whether it be coming into our environment. We have a fabulous environment across our grassroots community within the League of Ireland, across the international teams. So whatever level they will be coming into, we have brilliant safeguarding procedures. We ensure we create fun, safe environments. We ensure we educate the people that are working with the young people in the environments. And really, our ambition is to try and create a love for our sport so that when they come in, they won't want to leave. But all I would encourage any parent listening is whether it be our sport or any sport, try and go out there and be active. And if you can, take every minute and moment you can to be active with your child because it goes too fast.
That's brilliant. That's a great way to end it. So I want to say, Niall, thanks so much for giving me your time and coming on. I want to say I really, really enjoyed the conversation and appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks. Great to see you again, Dennis.
Cheers, buddy.